Hi, everybody. This is Paul Gerard. I'm a student loan consultant working with the American Dental Education Association, ADEA. This very important module is on married borrowers and repayment, what every married borrower should know about repaying their student loans. Now, in this module, we'll take a look at the impact of marital and tax filing status on the income-driven repayment plans, such as IBR Pay and Repay. We'll take a quick look at what are called community property states. We'll take a look at married borrowers and refinancing with private lenders, and we'll wrap this up with a look at estimating payments for married borrowers. Now, a reminder that on federal loans, such as direct unsubsidized and direct plus, there are lots of individual plans, but they all fall into two categories, time-driven and income-driven. Remember that marital and tax filing status have absolutely nothing to do with the calculation of monthly payments under the time-driven plans, such as the standard 10-year and the extended 25-year plans. We have repayment modules on the ADEA site specifically about this. But the income-driven repayment plans, such as IBR Pay and Repay, marital and tax filing status may in fact impact the calculation of monthly payments depending on the plan chosen. And that's the reason for this very important module. Now, we have a repayment module designed specifically for borrowers who are trying to choose between the income plans, specifically between the two newest plans, Pay and Repay. That is on the ADEA site, adea.org. We are simply showing you this chart to highlight that one of the major differences between these plans is the inclusion of spousal income. Now, please note that under both IBR, the older income-based repayment plan, Pay-as-you-earn, known as Pay, and the newest plan, Revised Pay-as-you-earn, known as Repay, spousal income is always included for married borrowers who are filing a joint return. But notice that under the older plans, IBR and Pay-as-you-earn, you can exclude the inclusion of spousal income in the determination of the monthly payment under both IBR and Pay if you file a separate return. So once again, if you are married and for whatever reason you need to exclude spousal income from the calculation of your monthly payment with an income plan, you'll need to file a separate return and use either income-based repayment, known as IBR, or Pay-as-you-earn, known as Pay. Now, in terms of the monthly payment calculation for IBR Pay and Repay, the federal formula looks at income and family size when determining the monthly payment calculation. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, what about the spouse's federal student loan debt? Is it factored into the payment calculation? Well, an easy way to think about it is this. If your spouse's income is being included in the monthly payment calculation, any spousal federal student loan debt they have will be factored into the calculation as well. Now, we know under Repay, that's always going to be the case, because remember from the previous slide, with Repay, spousal income is always counted regardless of tax filing status. And so with Repay, if spousal income is always going to be included in the calculation of the monthly payment, then any spousal federal student loan debt will be factored in as well. The same thing works for IBR and Pay. In other words, if income is counted from a spouse, then their student debt can be counted as well in the payment calculation. However, if a married borrower is filing a separate return and they're using IBR or Pay, remember they're using IBR or Pay and filing separately to exclude the use of spousal income in the payment calculation, then any spousal federal student loan debt will not be included in the calculation. Once again, if spousal income is included, their federal debt can be included. If spousal income is not being included, their student loan debt cannot be included. Pretty easy to remember. Now, what do we mean by this last bullet? Borrower's monthly payment is prorated based on what percentage of household federal debt they hold. Well, this is where it gets a little complicated, but let's suppose that a dental school graduate has $300,000 in federal student loan debt and their spouse has $100,000 in federal student loan debt. The total household federal student loan debt is $400,000, but the dental school graduate has 75% of that. If their monthly payment was calculated at $1,000, then the borrower from dental school is going to owe 75% of that, or $750 a month, because they hold 75% of the total household federal student loan debt. So once again, a borrower's monthly payment is prorated based on what percentage of household federal debt they hold. Your loan servicer can also help you with that calculation. Now let's talk for a few minutes about community property states. Now we have to put out a disclaimer here. We are not tax experts and we are not trying to give tax advice here, but in a community property state, the money that's earned by either spouse while they're married and any property that's bought with those earnings are considered equally owned by each spouse. Now you see a listing of the community property states there. There are 9: Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. Well, how does this impact the repayment under the income plans? Well, remember, when filing separately and using IBR or pay, if you're from a community property state, then at least half of your spouse's income is likely going to be reflected on that return. And if you're filing separately and using IBR or pay to exclude the inclusion of spousal income to help keep your payment lower, you're going to need to work with your loan servicer to request that the spousal income that's listed on that tax return, because you happen to live in a community property state, can be excluded from the calculation of payments. You may need to submit to the loan servicer what's often called alternative documentation of income, or perhaps a self-certification letter that simply says, my tax return reflects at least half of my spouse's income and I am filing separately. Please exclude their income from the calculation of my monthly payment under whichever plan you're using, IBR or pay. By the way, the U.S. Department of Education has given loan servicers information about this, and they are allowed to exclude spousal income in these cases. Now let's talk about refinancing and married student borrowers. First of all, a reminder that we have a repayment module on refinancing and some additional information on refinancing on the adia.org site we'd encourage you to take a look at. Refinancing is simply taking federal and or private student loans and trading them in or consolidating them, refinancing them at a lower interest rate with a private lender. Now, what does that have to do with married borrowers? We know from the previous slides that spousal federal student loan debt is factored into the monthly payment calculation for married borrowers who are using an income plan that includes spousal income. Very easy. If spousal income is included, spousal federal debt can be factored into the monthly payment calculation. But note that spousal private student loan debt is not factored into the payment calculation for a married borrower who's using an income plan that includes spousal income. So what's the implication here? This is simply implying that if you are married and you're using an income plan that counts spousal income and your spouse has federal student loan debt, well, the spousal federal student loan debt is being factored into what your monthly payment is on your student loans. But if they refinance their federal student loan debt with a private lender, your monthly payment is likely to go up because private student loan debt cannot be factored in to the monthly payment calculation. So very important to know that if you have a spouse who has federal student loan debt and they decide to refinance it with a private lender, that student loan debt can no longer be factored into the monthly payment calculation. So how do you estimate the impact of including spousal income and spousal federal student loan debt if your spouse has federal student loans on your monthly payment? The federal government has a repayment estimator available at studentloans.gov. Once you go to that site and log in, you will upload your federal student loan record from NSLDS right into the repayment estimator, and then it's easy from there. Simply go to the drop-down menu under tax filing status, and the first time choose married filing jointly and look at the repayment numbers, and then choose married filing separately and make a comparison with the numbers excluding spousal income. So an easy way to estimate the impact of the inclusion of spousal income on your student loan payments. We hope this information on married student borrowers and the impact of marital and tax filing status on the income plans has been beneficial to you. Thank you for your attention, and remember that responsible borrowing leads to responsible repayment.